Rain lashed against Clara's cabin like furious fists, the wind howling through the pines. She just stoked the fire when a faint whimper cut through the storm. A sound too weak to be an animal, too desperate to ignore. Pulling her coat tight, she flung the door open, her flashlight beam revealing a shivering mass of fur crumpled on her porch. The puppy, a mud-streaked, emaciated German shepherd, lifted its head, eyes glazed with pain. Its ribs jutted like broken piano keys, and one paw dragged uselessly behind it. But what froze Clara's blood wasn't its injuries. It was the way the pup clamped its jaws around something, a tiny, sodden object it refused to drop even as it trembled. Clara knelt, her voice soft as she pried the puppy's mouth open. "Let go, sweetheart. I'm here to help." But the dog whimpered, resisting with a strength that defied its condition. When her fingers finally brushed the object, her breath hitched. A crumpled photograph, its edges torn but the image unmistakable. A smiling boy, no older than 8, hugging this very pup. The back of the photo bore a scribbled date, just 3 days ago, and a name, Max plus Buddy. Forever. Clara's hands shook. This pup hadn't crawled to her door for shelter. It had come on a mission. Wrapping Buddy in a blanket, Clara sped toward town, her truck skidding on muddy roads. The vet's grim diagnosis, severe malnutrition, a fractured leg, and signs of poisoning, sent her reeling. He wouldn't survive surgery, the vet warned, but Clara slammed her palm on the counter. He didn't crawl this far to die. As Buddy fought for life under 4 drips, Clara studied the photo. The boy's t-shirt bore a logo, Sunrise Campground, a place 20 miles deep in the woods, a place now evacuated due to flash floods. Her pulse spiked. Why was Buddy alone? Where was Max? Back home, Clara spread a map across her table, tracing routes to Sunrise. Buddy's whines from the bedroom tore at her. He'd refused to sleep, his eyes locked on the door. At 3 a.m., she jolted awake to frantic scratching. Buddy, dragging his IV stand, pawed at her boots, then the photo, his bark a ragged plea. A realization struck. Buddy wasn't just sick. He'd been poisoned protecting Max. She packed a first aid kit, a rope, and the photo. "We're finding him," she whispered. Buddy licked her hand once, as if sealing a pact. Dawn painted the sky blood red as Clara forged through waist-high water, Buddy cradled against her chest. Uprooted trees and debris marked where the campground once stood. Then a weak cry, "Help!" snagged her ear. Near a collapsed cabin, a tiny hand jutted from the rubble. Maximum. Buried under beams, his legs pinned, his skin ghostly. Buddy wriggled from Clara's arms, limping to the boy's side, licking his face. Max's eyelids fluttered. Buddy, you came back," he rasped. Clara's tears mixed with rain as she heaved at the wreckage. How had Buddy crossed miles of wilderness in this state? As Clara stabilized Max, his whispers unraveled the horror. His stepfather, enraged by the boy's attachment to Buddy, had laced the dog's food with rat poison and abandoned them in the woods. "Buddy ate it all, so I wouldn't," Max sobbed. "Then he carried my photo. To get help." Clara's rage burned hotter than the fever on Max's brow. She radioed for rescue, but the storm had knocked out comms. They were on their own. Buddy, now slumped beside Max, let out a shuddering sigh. His job was done. With the river rising, Clara faced an impossible choice: carry Max to safety and leave Buddy, or risk all their lives trying to haul the dying dog. Max clung to Buddy's fur. "We can't leave him! He saved me!" Clara's resolve hardened. She fashioned a stretcher from branches and her coat, securing Buddy atop it. "Nobody gets left behind," she growled, hoisting Max onto her back. For hours, she staggered through the torrent, Buddy's labored breaths her compass. Just as Clara's legs gave out, a helicopter spotlight seared through the trees. The rangers she'd called days earlier, alarmed by her absence, had scoured the area. As medics loaded Max and Buddy, the boy's fingers tangled in Clara's sleeve. "You're his angel," he whispered. But Clara knew the truth. Buddy was the angel. The photo in her pocket, now blood-speckled, proved it. The helicopter's roar faded as medics rushed Max and Buddy into separate trauma rooms. Clara, still soaked and shaking, pressed her palm against the glass of Buddy's ICU bay. The vet's words were grim. Kidney failure. Neurological damage. His body is shutting down. But Buddy's tail thumped weakly when Max's gurney rolled past. He wouldn't let go. Not yet. Down the hall, Max's mother, Lisa, arrived, a whirlwind of tears and fury. She'd been searching for days after her ex-husband lied about Max's whereabouts. When she saw Buddy's photo clutched in her son's hand, she collapsed to her knees. "That dog, he brought you back to me," she sobbed. Max, barely conscious, whispered, "He ate the poison for me." For 72 hours, Buddy hovered between life and death. Clara never left, sleeping in chair wedged between his cage and Max's room. Nurses marveled. Every time Max cried out, Buddy's monitors spiked, as if his heart willed itself to keep beating for the boy. On the third night, Clara awoke to a soft whine. Buddy was standing, swaying, his IV line taut as he strained toward Max's doorway. The vet called it a miracle. Clara called it love. She helped Buddy hobble to Max's bedside, where the pup promptly collapsed atop the boy's feet. His usual spot, Lisa realized. "He used to sleep like that every night," she told Clara. "Like he was guarding Max from nightmares." As Max regained strength, the full story spilled out. His stepfather had hated Buddy from day one. "He said dogs were a waste of money," Max muttered, tracing Buddy's bandaged paw. The night of the storm, the man had tossed poisoned meat into Buddy's bowl. When the dog collapsed, he'd driven them both to the woods and dumped them. But Buddy woke up. "He licked my face until I stood, then pushed me under the cabin porch when the flood came." Max's voice broke. "He took the photo from my pocket and ran. I thought he abandoned me." Clara's fists clenched. "He was getting help," she said. On the bedside table, the crumpled photo seemed to glow. Max's smile, Buddy's trusting eyes, a snapshot of love that outlasted evil. Police found Max's stepfather at a bar, bragging about finally getting rid of that mutt. When officers cuffed him, Clara brought Buddy, now stable, to the station. The moment the man sneered, "Should have kicked that dog harder," Buddy did something extraordinary. He didn't growl, didn't bark. He sat calmly, locked eyes with his abuser, and yawned. The message was clear. "You're nothing." The video went viral. By noon, the hashtag Justice for Buddy trended nationwide. Donations flooded in, for Max's therapy, Buddy's surgeries, even Clara's crumbling cabin. Strangers sent handmade bandanas with slogans, "Heroes have paws." 2 weeks later, Clara's cabin transformed. Volunteers rebuilt the porch, neighbors stocked the fridge. But the real change was Max, laughing as Buddy, now with a tiny wheelchair for his healed leg, chased squirrels in slow motion. Lisa hugged Clara. "You saved them both." Clara shook her head. "Buddy did. I just followed the dog." That night, as fireflies dotted the yard, Max tucked the photo into a frame beside his bed. Buddy flopped onto Clara's feet, sighing as if to say, "Finally, everyone's where they belong." Peace shattered at 2 a.m. Clara woke to Buddy's snarling, a sound she'd never heard. Outside, a shadow lurked near the woodshed. Max's stepfather, out on bail, drunk, and gripping a hunting knife. "That dog ruined my life," he slurred, kicking the door. Clara shoved Max into a closet, grabbed her rifle and whispered, "Stay with Buddy." But Buddy had other plans. As the man smashed a window, the dog launched himself, not at the intruder, but at Clara's ankles, yanking her backward just as a knife struck where she'd stood. Chaos erupted. Buddy, fueled by primal rage, latched onto the man's arm. Clara's bullet grazed his thigh, sending him fleeing. But Buddy collapsed, blood seeping through his bandages. "Not again! Not again!" Max chanted, pressing his face to Buddy's fur as Clara dialed 911. The vet's words were a punch. "Internal bleeding. His body can't take more trauma." Max screamed, "No! He can't leave me now!" Buddy licked his tears, then nudged the framed photo toward Clara. A silent plea. "Take care of my boy." As dawn broke, Buddy's breathing slowed. Clara carried him to the creek, his favorite spot. Max curled around him, whispering, "You're the best dog in the whole world." Buddy's tail wagged once. Then, as the sun crested the trees, he sighed and stilled. But death wasn't the end. Beneath Buddy's paw, Clara spotted a glint, a dog tag buried in the dirt. It read, "If found, return to Max. I'm his guardian." Lisa gasped. "He must have buried it here, in case he didn't make it back." The morning after Buddy's passing, Clara woke to find Max asleep in the dirt by the creek, his arms still wrapped around Buddy's lifeless body. The rising sun painted them gold, a heartbreaking tableau of love and loss. As Clara knelt to wake him, she noticed something miraculous. Fresh paw prints leading from Buddy's body to the water's edge, as if his spirit had taken one last drink. Max stirred, his face streaked with dried tears. "He came to say goodbye," he whispered. Clara expected grief, but Max's eyes burned with quiet determination. "We have to make sure no dog ever suffers like Buddy again." From his pocket, he pulled the crumpled photo, now laminated. "This is our mission now." News vans swarmed Clara's property by noon. Max, standing on a tree stump with Buddy's collar around his wrist, addressed the cameras. "My stepfather got only 6 months for animal cruelty." "That's not justice." His voice didn't shake. "We're starting a petition to make Buddy's law. Minimum 5 years for abuse, plus lifetime bans on owning animals." The clip went viral. By nightfall, 500,000 signatures flooded in. A senator called it the people's mandate. Even the sheriff, who'd initially dismissed Buddy's case as just a dog, publicly apologized, resigning the next day. 3 nights later, Clara jolted awake to the sound of claws clicking on hardwood. She followed the noise to Max's room, where his new rescue pup, Bear, a German shepherd with Buddy's exact markings, stood growling at an empty corner. Max sat bolt upright. "Buddy was here," he said matter-of-factly. "Bear sees him too." On the floor lay Buddy's old chew toy, dry despite the rainy night. Clara pocketed it, her throat tight. Some bonds, she realized, outlast even death. The courtroom erupted when Max took the stand. Holding Buddy's collar, he faced his stepfather and said, "You thought hurting Buddy would break me, but you made us immortal." The judge allowed unprecedented evidence. Buddy's necropsy photos, the viral video of his yawn, even the poisoned meat's receipt. The sentence? 10 years, the maximum. As deputies led the man away, Max turned to Clara. "Buddy won," he said softly. Outside, a stray dog howled, a sound eerily like Buddy's old alert bark. With donation money, Clara bought 50 acres bordering the national forest. Buddy's haven opened on the anniversary of his death, a sanctuary for abused animals and at-risk kids. The first resident? A one-eyed pit bull found chained in a meth lab, now Max's shadow. At the ribbon cutting, Max unveiled the centerpiece, a bronze statue of Buddy mid-yawn, his paw resting on a child's shoe. The plaque read, "Real heroes don't need capes, just courage." On Max's 16th birthday, he dreamed of Buddy, not as a ghost, but as a radiant figure in a sunlit field. "You're not supposed to be here yet," Buddy seemed to say. Max woke, clutching something impossible. A tuft of fur that matched Buddy's exact brindle pattern. Under his pillow? The long-lost squeaker from Buddy's favorite toy. Clara, ever practical, couldn't explain it. She just added it to the growing Buddy shrine in their living room. Disaster struck in year 3. A wildfire tore toward the sanctuary. As volunteers evacuated animals, Max realized Bear was missing, last seen bolting toward the creek. Clara sprinted after him, her lungs burning. There, amid smoke, Bear stood guard over a den of orphaned fox kits, his stance mirroring Buddy's old protective pose. The fire missed the sanctuary by half a mile. That night, volunteers swore they saw a spectral German shepherd patrolling the tree line. At 18, Max aced K-9 training, thanks to Bear. When Marines offered them both spots in their elite dog handler program, Max hesitated. Then, while packing, he found Buddy's tag wedged in his boot. The message was clear. Their first deployment? A war zone where they saved 12 civilians by sniffing out IEDs. The media dubbed them Buddy's Legacy. Years later, an elderly man visited Buddy's statue. Clara recognized him, the helicopter pilot who'd rescued Max. "I never told you," he rasped. "That night my instruments failed. I was lost until I heard a dog howling. Impossible, right? But it led me straight to you." From his wallet, he produced a photo. His cockpit window where frost had inexplicably formed the shape of a running dog. On Max's wedding day, he left an empty chair with Buddy's collar. As vows were exchanged, a gust scattered cherry blossoms onto the seat. Later, the photographer found a mysterious blur in the shots, a dog-shaped shadow beside Max. Clara, now gray-haired, smiled. "Gate crashing like always, huh, Buddy?" Max's wife gave birth during the first snow of winter, a boy named Lucas, whose left iris held an impossible streak of blue exactly like Buddy's. When the nurse placed him in Max's arms, Lucas immediately grabbed Buddy's old collar hanging around Max's neck. The heart monitor nearby suddenly played a steady rhythm in time with Buddy's long-ago heartbeat from the vet clinic. Nurses swore it had never happened before. That night, Clara found Bear curled around Lucas's crib, his muzzle resting protectively on the baby's blanket. On the floor lay Buddy's chewed-up, squeaky toy, dry and warm, despite the snow melting off Clara's boots. Dr. Ellen Park, a renowned animal behaviorist, came to study the Buddy effect, the phenomenon where rescue dogs with white chest markings, like Buddy's, showed uncanny crisis intuition. Her team set up cameras across the sanctuary. What they captured went viral. A mastiff waking volunteers seconds before a gas leak. A 3-legged pit bull herding kids away from a collapsing tree. And Bear, growling at empty corners before human visitors collapsed from undiagnosed seizures. The kicker? Thermal imaging revealed brief cold spots shaped like a running dog during these events. Dr. Park's published paper title said it all. Canine Guardians Beyond Instinct. When Hurricane Lydia demolished coastal towns, Max and Bear deployed with disaster response. Amid the wreckage, a little girl named Tess told rescuers a big silver dog led her to safety through floodwaters. She drew a picture, a German shepherd with Buddy's crooked ear and a photo clamped in its jaws. The impossible part? Tess's family had never visited the sanctuary. Yet when shown Buddy's statue, she gasped, "That's him!" He licked my face before he vanished. Security footage from her rescue showed only Tess alone. But the timestamp matched the exact minute Buddy had died years earlier. At 92, Clara passed in her sleep, Lucas's hand in hers and Bear's muzzle on her lap. The hospice nurse swore an hour earlier Clara had sat up suddenly whispering, "Buddy?" with a smile. The security camera footage, later leaked online, showed a blur streaking into her room at 3:17 a.m., the time Buddy had first whimpered at her door. The motion sensor lights in the yard flickered on, revealing paw prints in the frost leading to the porch, but none leading away. At her funeral, Max played the storm footage from segment 26, the moment Bear had howled Buddy's cry. As the recording ended, every dog in attendance suddenly sat at attention, ears perked toward the creek. A child's voice, Lucas's, rang out, "Grandma's with the brave dog now." The next morning, Lucas found Buddy's photo on his pillow. The boy in the picture, Max, at age 8, now had Clara's face subtly blended into the background, her hand resting on Buddy's head. The date on the back had changed. Max plus Buddy plus Clara. Forever.